Professor Anna Mutiti, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Science, Professor Patrick Njobeh, our professor tonight, Professor Oluwafemi Odebo, oh God, excuse me for that, senior leaders of the university, members of Senate, and other academics here present, distinguished guests, students here present, and all who have joined us virtually. Sanibonani, Huyenant, good evening, Tobela, Molweni. Molweni, good evening. It is a joyous event. Good evening. Thank you. Yes. It is indeed a great honor and special privilege for me to welcome you to the Professorial Inaugural Lecture of Professor Patrick Njobeh. As I do, I wish to express a warm welcome to your loved ones, Professor Njobeh, to your special guests, to your colleagues here present. This is indeed a proud and joyful moment, and yet it is a landmark for all of you here present. It is a landmark for UJ. It is a landmark for higher education. It is a landmark for South Africa and beyond. It is a landmark in your native village in Cameroon called Nzo. It is a landmark for Ma and Pa, Becca, So, Sylvester, and family. The inauguration of professors is a public ceremony in which newly appointed professors are inducted into office by the Vice-Chancellor, whom I represent tonight, and deliver their inaugural address. The ceremony itself has its roots in the medieval university and serves multiple purposes. So what is it that it serves? First, it is an expression of welcome and an entry of new professors joining the circle of colleagues who are already professors. Secondly, it provides a platform for professors to display their expertise in the discipline and showcase their research. I went through yours and I thought it was rich enough. I also thought the UN should have been here tonight. In the colonial traditions subscribed to by many universities, assuming the role of a professor refers to the gown and the cap. Once we have listened to your inaugural lecture, the gown denoting the professorship will be formally assumed. Today, we gather to witness you entering the illustrious community of scholars of our university. And as we do so, we celebrate your contribution not only to the discipline, but also to society in general. Professors provide a university with identity, with character, academic legitimacy, and integrity, and we expect no less from you. The inaugural lecture itself, which is tonight, is a rite of passage following the confirmation of the appointment of a person as a professor. This evening, we will listen to you, Professor Patrick Njobeh, as the gown goes to town. By this, I mean the power of the inaugural lecture is when your expertise is showcased beyond the corridors of this university and it reverberates throughout society. It is not a small day. It stands out as a moment of pride for you, for your family, for your fellow scholars, the university, your students, and ultimately society. In the past, several philosophers and scholars have defined universities very narrowly, conceptually speaking. For example, the search for truth, for universal knowledge, and even as instruments serving the purpose of the economy or being utilitarian in nature has always been minimized. Throughout your work and research, we hope that you can break out these narrow conceptualizations and reflect on the university as contributing to the public good, working towards societal impact. I loved it when I saw that the last thing that you said was silver lining, and I was hopeful. What is the role of the intellectual, we ask tonight? Edward Said, in one of his articles, defines the role of an intellectual, such as yourself, as the one who commands a vast knowledge of a specific discipline. And this is who you will be when you stand here. The one who is rigorous in the analysis of literature, the one who views being an intellectual as a vocation, and the one who functions as a kind of public memory to recall what is forgotten or ignored, to make the connections that are otherwise hidden, and to provide alternatives to mistaken policies. This is what we expect that you will be doing tonight. It remains then for us as a university with a pan-African vision to derive our mandate as intellectuals and as professors. As importantly, how we embrace the role of a professor as a disruptor while continuing to be flagship carriers of our disciplines. This evening, we will listen to you, Professor Patrick Njobeh, as one further step in the journey of being a professor. This is a journey that does not conclude once this lecture has been given. Notwithstanding, this inaugural lecture does create an opportunity for a self-reflective pause in the journey of a professor. Now, it is my pleasure and honor to invite you, Professor Professor Anamutiti to introduce Professor Njobeh to us. Thank you.
Good evening. Vice Chancellor Functionary, Dr. Vukusa, please allow me to observe protocol. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce to you Professor Njobeh. As I read through his very, very comprehensive CV, I think you will see he has many accolades, and please indulge me, he has earned it, I think. Patrick was born to Ma and Pa Baker So Sylvester in his native village of Nzo in the northwest province of Cameroon, and grew up with his maternal grandparents. After completing his secondary school education, he proceeded to Nigeria, where he obtained his Bachelor of Technology degree in agriculture at the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University in 1997. Thereafter, he went back to Cameroon, where he worked as an animal farm manager in Douala for over 3 years. His interest in furthering his education pushed him through to proceed to the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Pietermaritzburg in South Africa, where he completed his Masters of Science degree in Animal Nutrition in 2003. Thereon, Prof. Njobeh joined the University of Johannesburg and completed a Doctor of Technology degree in Biomedical Technology in 2010. After completing a 2-year postdoctoral training under the mentorship of Professor Darton at the Faculty of Health Sciences in UJ, Patrick was appointed as a senior lecturer in August 2012 in the Department of Biotechnology and Food Technology. After Professor Darton's retirement from UJ in 2012, Patrick became the head of the Food, Environment, and Health Research Group of the university. In 2017, Professor Njobeh was appointed to an associate professor of food safety, and subsequently rose to the rank of a full professor in May 2020. In the past 11 years at UJ, Prof. Njobeh coordinated BTech postgraduate admission, served at the Faculty Higher Degrees Committee and many other committees in the faculty. He also even served as a deputy head of department for the 2019 academic year and was involved as a mentor with the Accelerated Academic Mentoring Program and currently serving at the University Senate. Prof. Njobeh's research focus is in the area of food safety and security that cuts across various scientific disciplines that include agriculture, food science, feed science, and nutrition, microbiology, and nanotechnology. He has been actively involved in a number of community engagements in projects in agriculture in several provinces in South Africa, in collaboration with the National Youth Development Agency of South Africa. Some of these projects have been the cultivation of West African indigenous crops to improve nutrition and health in rural communities. In the last 11 years, he has been a recipient of several international and national grants to a total value of close to 47 million rands via several funding bodies in South Africa, European Union, African Union, and many, many more. And including URC, he said I should specifically include University Research Committee funding that he received in UJ. Professor Njobeh has scientific and community-based awards and appointments, inter alia UJ Emerging Researcher in 2015, a member of Joint FAO-WHO Expert Committee on Food Additives, African Union Advisory Board member of World Bank African Center of Excellence in Mycotoxin and Food Safety, and an international affiliate at Center for Water Resources in the United States. And many, many more, ladies and gentlemen. He serves at the editorial board of Mycotoxin Research and has been a reviewer of numerous scientific journals, and has also served as a reviewer for grant applications across many funding bodies, including the National Research Foundation of South Africa, the South African Medical Research Council, South African Water Research Commission, and so on, and so on, and so on. He is a regular examiner for master's and doctoral theses for several universities in South Africa, and has served also as an external reviewer of promotion applications at the University of the Witwatersrand, University of the Northwest, and other international universities as well, including University of Zimbabwe. He was the founding chairperson of the Food Safety and Security FSIS conference. Prof. Njobeh has made an enormous contribution in his scientific domain with an excellent track record of postgraduate supervision, whereby he has successfully hosted 7 postdoctoral fellows, 30 masters, and 16 PhD candidates to completion, with currently 10 masters and 9 under supervision. He has published more than 220 scientific publications as book chapters, journal articles, and conference proceedings. According to Skyval, researchers ranking metrics in food science, he is placed at 6th and 18th positions in South Africa and Africa, respectively. In terms of NRF rating, he is a C2 rated researcher since 2017, and in 2023 he reapplied for rating, and we are waiting, hoping for a better rating, Prof. Njobeh. His research has attracted media and scientific reporting, being interviewed on platforms for African-European Partnership in Agricultural Research for Development, and many other media outlets, including the SABC, ENCA, and UJFM. He has delivered public lectures at the Federal University of Technology in Nigeria, Federal University of Agriculture, also in Nigeria, and many, many other countries, nationally and internationally, including Sweden, Hungary, Kenya, Belgium, and gave keynote addresses at the 13th Annual Conference of Mycotoxicology Society of Nigeria at the Coventry University. Also involved in 2020 NRF LIP Agri MycoSafe South Workshop, in 2021, organized the Women in Science in the Developing Countries Workshop, Third African Society of Mycotoxicology Stellenbosch, held in Stellenbosch, Agriculture Engineering Symposium held at the University of Zululand and University of Missouri, United States. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Professor Patrick Njobeh.
Vice Chancellor Functionary, Dr. Nolita Vukoza. My Executive Dean of the Faculty of Science, Professor Anna Muteti. My respondent, Prof. Oluwafemi Adebo, distinguished colleagues, fellow students, my family members both here and out of here, I just want to say thank you for coming, and I'm so happy to be here to give something here for us to listen to. But before I proceed, each time that I send an invitation, I extend an invitation to my loved ones or friends, or they ask me, but what is a professorial inaugural lecture? And I said, if someone has been appointed or promoted to the rank of full professor, the person has to profess his profession by actually speaking or saying something about his achievement within the area of discipline where he is professing, or where he is an academic or a researcher in. And still they don't get it. And I said, then I'm not able to explain further, but kindly visit the University of Johannesburg, and then you will begin to understand exactly, because I will stand and give such a similar or related lecture, because I have been a full professor. This has been long overdue. Nonetheless, because I wanted my parents that played a great role in my academic path to be present. They were here in 2022, December to March. Unfortunately, the executive leadership committee members were unavailable. And in May, May this year, I was invited to give this same lecture. But unfortunately, I wanted to make it live, because at that time, I was concluding my sabbatical leave in the US. So then it was just this evening that was made available for me. And I just want to thank you all. And I pray that the God Almighty that brought us safely here should take us back home to our various destinations safely as he did. Thank you so much for coming. I am going to be giving a presentation here. I will conclude by making certain acknowledgements. Everybody has played a great role in my career path until I got to this very first moment. When I say my boss, she says, no, she is my colleague. And true, she acts as one. She's I'm not saying this because she's here. I've worked with her before she became the executive dean of the faculty, Prof. Anna Muteti. I just want to say I wish you the very best. It is not a position that anyone can really be proud of sitting on. It's tough, because sometimes you meet people like us that are really stubborn. But we understand that we all have to do our jobs. I think when you were reading, I don't know whether I should call it a CV or a biography, but whatever you call it, the thing is that it looks really exaggerating. But all these things have not been possible without my family. My wife is here, my son is here. My wife has been going through a very rough patch in terms of her health condition, and she has just forced, not that she has forced herself to be here, but I think it's that her being there is a miracle, because what she has gone through the past couple of weeks has been terrible. And I just want to say thank you, but she also received great support from each and everyone, including my colleagues. Some of them are not here. My present and past HODs and the deputy HODs in our departments and other colleagues, because the prayers, I think God really heard those prayers. But let's just proceed. Let's not get carried away, because I only have 40 minutes. And I wonder what I can really say in 40 minutes if I spent more than how many years? Anyway, we are talking about food safety. I think food safety is everyone is affected by it, because it's a huge, huge issue. And in fact, it should top the chart when it comes to world problems. Of course, we have wars, we have things that are really going on, but food safety should be one of them. And that's why in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, you see a lot on food safety. So here our topic of discussion this evening is about mycotoxins and food safety, what we know. And in the silver lining, I could hear our functionary, a vice chancellor functionary was talking that she was actually attracted to the silver lining. We are not going to have much on it in any case. But let's see our presentation outline for tonight. We will talk about give a brief introduction or background on mycotoxins. And then we will look at the historical perspective from the South African point of view, the role South Africa has played as far as mycotoxicology research is concerned. We will also define what mycotoxins are, what we know, and then we will go briefly into 4 different parts where you will see the role that my research unit has played with regards to mycotoxicology in the continent. We'll look at some of the challenges, our list, followed by, before we do that, I'll give a list of some of the students, both international students, those that are registered in UJ, that we are registered in the University of Johannesburg, and those that I supervised that came on student exchange program that ended up graduating after visiting the University of Johannesburg. Then we'll look at some of the challenges that we are facing or that we have been facing. And then we'll go briefly to talk a little bit about the silver lining, because there is not much that we can talk when it comes to that. And then we'll look at current and future perspectives with the type of research that we are doing or we plan doing within the mycotoxin unit at the University of Johannesburg. Now the introductory part. What are mycotoxins? These are secondary metabolites, or we say these are compounds that are produced by fungi that contaminate various food and feed commodities. We collectively call them that they are poisons indeed. And about 300 to 400 of them have been discovered and characterized so far. But those that we consider significant are those that belong to the aflatoxins, the okra toxins, the fumonicins, then you have the trichoticins, and then you also have the zearalenone. We'll be seeing how they rule. The most significant one among them are the aflatoxins, specifically aflatoxin B1, because it has really been considered as the most naturally occurring carcinogen, more than any other carcinogen that is occurring naturally that have been discovered. And the most significant fungal species, or the members of the species, fungal species that produce these mycotoxins that we consider significant because of the role they play with the economy and the health effects they cause, in addition to the increased levels that are regularly encountered in various food and feed commodities. You find the aspergillus, you have the fusarium, you have the penicillium, and then you also have the alternaria that are coming with because they produce the ergot alkaloids, right? And then we have the stachybotrix that are also producing the trichotoxins that we are considering, especially in Europe, as one of the significant mycotoxins causing a lot of health issues in Europe. And the thing is that each fungus produces specific mycotoxins. They could produce one or more, but you also have different fungi that are really producing the same type of mycotoxins, right? And the thing is that these mycotoxins, they are highly variable in terms of their chemical structures, and so too are the toxic effects or the diseases that they cause that you collectively refer to them as mycotoxicosis. They equally vary, especially from one animal species to the other. And we should just have in mind that these mycotoxins, they are actually toxic to both animal and man, even at concentrations that are as low even at low concentrations. You can classify mycotoxins in various ways. The first one is that you can classify them in terms of whether it's acute or within a short period of exposure or long-term exposure as acute or chronic. And then you could also classify them in terms of the toxic effects that they cause in both animal and man. And you can refer to them as teratogens. They affect in terms of birth or affect reproduction, teratogens. Or immunotoxins affect the immune system. And they could be nephrotoxins when they affect the kidney, genotoxins where they affect the genes, affect our genes. And then they could be carcinogens in terms of causing cancer in animal and man. Exposure to mycotoxins among humans and animals are variable. They are of different kinds, but the major one is by direct consumption of food or animal feed that is contaminated with these mycotoxins via ingestion. Or you could get them inhaled and then skin through the dermal route, and then it could also be mother-to-child transmission, which could be parental route. What are the effects of mycotoxins? They are variable, collectively break down them into that they affect world trade and the economy. They also affect food security and nutrition, and they are also, as we say, they also affect human and animal health. Now, in terms of the economic impact, the negative economic impact of mycotoxins, they are obvious, and they lead to outright loss in crop, and they actually affect humans and animals. The severe health impacts or high mortality rates in various countries, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, where the climate or climatic conditions are conducive for fungal and mycotoxin contamination. And there we have less regulation and monitoring programs in place for these mycotoxins in food and feed. And the losses are usually very significant and usually estimated to be in about 1.2 billion US dollars annually, right? And this is just for aflatoxins alone. We have several cases in point according to the European Commission 2015, 2016, and 2017, where we have in 2016 33 peanut consignments from Egypt were rejected at point of entry into the European community. And then there are other rejections that occurred due to that these peanuts were heavily contaminated with aflatoxin B1. levels that are above 7.2 parts per billion, or 7.2 microgram per kg. And then you also have the rapid alert system for food and feed in the US, where you have 76 notifications alerts that are coming from Ethiopia alone in 2015, and you have the same case in Gambia, in Gambia, Gambian peanuts. So a case in point, an example, just Kenya alone, or Africa alone, annually, about more than one-third of world losses are due to aflatoxins alone. That is almost close to about 450 million US dollars annually. And there are clear indications that almost about 65% of imports from Africa are going to be drastically reduced due to regulations on aflatoxins in the EU. The health effects are many, but we will not really go there. Let's just try to appreciate exactly the role of South Africa with regards to, from the historical perspective, with regards to mycotoxin research and occurrences. So the first thing is that we should understand that mycotoxin, or problems that are associated with mycotoxins among humans and animals, had occurred thousands upon thousands of years ago, where we could see St. Antonius fire, what is called ergotism, had been reported, where you have limbs of victims breaking and falling down. That occurs, we witness that in the Bible. But now in South Africa, mycotoxin research actually began with the establishment of the Okra Veterinary Institute in 1908. And then in 1927, diplodiosis, that is caused by Diplodia maydis, that contaminates rye grass, was experimentally reproduced. And in 1941, we got the first outbreak of naturally occurring diplodiosis, this disease we are talking about. Then in 1961, mycotoxin research actually began fully in South Africa. That was just about a year before the discovery of aflatoxins in the United Kingdom, after when there was an outbreak of aflatoxicosis among turkey poults that consumed animal feeds that were heavily contaminated with aflatoxins. Then subsequently, 4 years later, in 1965, Okra toxin, that is one of the most significant groups of mycotoxins, were actually discovered here in South Africa, still at the Okra Veterinary Institute, by a group of South African scientists. Then, in 1969, the Medical Research Council, to be specific, program for research on mycotoxins and experimental carcinogenesis was established within the Medical Research Council. And in 1981, the equine leukoencephalomalacia that affects horses was reported. And in 1990, the disease was experimentally reproduced within horses. Then in 1988, there is another discovery of another very significant group of mycotoxin fumonisin that was discovered then within the Medical Research Council. In 1990, subsequently in 2003 and 2009, tolerable or regulatory limits for mycotoxins were established. Then, in 1996 and in 2005, subsequently, the case of ergotism in South Africa, among South African ruminants. Both large and small ruminants were reported. And you also had the first case of human aflatoxicosis. That means in 2001, under the primary school nutrition program in the Eastern Cape, was reported, where you had peanut butter that was used in the sandwich given to these primary school pupils. We are found to have more than 150, more than almost about 300 and something parts per billion, several times more than the regulatory limit for food. Then in 2010, we had the first case of porcine nephropathy and its possible causative agent. This one was reported by Prof. Stoiko, who was here in our research, the Food and Environment Research Group, a group that visited us for a 2-year period under the Marie Curie visit to Africa. So in fact, this work was done in our laboratory, and that was the first report. Porcine nephropathy is common within the Baltic states, including Bulgaria, Hungary, and all those states. So, but this is the first time that it was reported. Then in 2011, I may be talking too much on this, but we just need to really be appreciative of the role South Africa has played when it comes to mycotoxin research. So in 2011, that was the first case of aflatoxicosis that was reported among dogs, where it left about 220 dogs dead and several others that went unnoticed after consuming pet food that was heavily dosed with aflatoxins, almost about 400 times above the regulatory limit of 10. Then in September 2021, that should be the last that we should be talking about. So we also had several batches, almost about 6 batches of appetizer that contained pathogen above a permissible limit of 50 parts per billion. After leaving the historical perspective, let's have some highlights on mycotoxin research in the University of Johannesburg. First of all, in 2005, the Food, Environment, and Health Research Group was established by Prof. Mike Dutton. That's him on the right. I took this picture. Yes. And then in 2007, the research group decided to organize a research day. And so we invited various people from outside. So we had students and various invitees. And during that time, all the students had to give a presentation on their research findings or proposals. And that is one of the strategies that we took so that we can be recognized, right? Okay. And when it was formed, the main thrust was food and feed analysis for fungi and mycotoxins, and also to conduct some exposure assessment, mainly in rural communities around Africa, Rwanda, Cameroon, Nigeria, South Africa inclusive. Then we also have Gabon and other countries. And during that time, Prof. Mike Dutton developed a method for multi-mycotoxin screening, semi-quantitatively, for various food commodities, and over 20 mycotoxins were simultaneously analyzed at the time. Now, post-Dutton era. How many minutes do I have, please? We still have some time, okay. All right. All right, so Prof. Dutton finally retired from the University of Johannesburg in 2012, and I was then made to take the lead in the research unit, which was then transferred from the Faculty of Health Science to the Department of Biotechnology and Food Technology. And the core objective at that time, when I took over the leadership, remained focused on research into the safety safety of agricultural commodities and public health. However, the unit extended its activities into many areas of food processing, food security, human and animal health, climate change, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, phytochemistry, and that. Now let's see now the rules that, or what we have been doing. Part 1, studying mycotoxin incidence and occurrence in food and feed. Here we published a biomonitoring exposure assessment in Cameroon. This was my first postdoctoral research fellow from Cameroon, where he looked at exposure assessment of various mycotoxins. The key finding there is that those that were HIV positive were more vulnerable to various mycotoxins. This was then published there immediately. Now looking into feed, I think Rumbi is here. This is her PhD work where she looked into various commodities, feed commodities, and in various, I think, in the Free State and Limpopo province, and she found extremely high levels of mycotoxins in some of these feeds, and there we could suggest possible problems that could arise among dairy cattle that are consuming such feeds. Part 2 looked at development because we have issues in terms of cost, environmentally unfriendly. So we looked into developing methods for mycotoxin analysis. The first one that we did was we developed, optimized, and validated a cost-effective and environmentally friendly extraction method that is called pressurized hot water extraction for various mycotoxins within a single go. Now the thing was that what we found is that it was really possible to effectively extract and quantify 15 mycotoxins in maize in a single step with satisfactory linearities that you could see from 0.986 to 0.999. Now, you look at recovery rate where you have 14 to 124%. The 14 there was for alpha-zearalenone. And then you also had okra toxin. I'll explain subsequently when you see how I'm so keen about alpha-zearalenone subsequently. And then you will find that okra toxin A is one of the most significant mycotoxins. But the recovery rate was less than 48%. So we looked into how we can really develop and try to see how we can really improve the recovery rate for this particular aflatoxin. But that article was published. I'm just picking bits from here and there to put because we don't have much time. And then in part 3, we looked at prevention and control of mycotoxins, mycotoxigenic fungi, and mycotoxin contamination of food and feed commodities. Now, with this paper, in this aspect of the work that we do, I just picked that of Juliana. It was a joint PhD between Ghent University and the University of Johannesburg, sponsored by the European Union and the African Union, and the National Research Foundation of South Africa. Yeah, with this one, we looked at selected method for using various ingredients which is collectively called nixtamalization, where you use different cooking ingredients such as wood ash, calcium hydroxide, sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide, and potassium chloride. But on fumonisin reduction, we said fumonisin is one of the most significant mycotoxins groups that we find in sub-Saharan, not just only in globally. So here, the reduction in both maize and sorghum. Now, the finding revealed that the methods were really good, except for the one that we use calcium chloride, right? But any other ones, we are able to reduce fumonisin up to levels that are about I mean 90% of the fumonisin present. The limitation with this work is that reduce, how did he reduce? How did the fumonisin reduce? Is it that the fumonisins were broken down, and even if they are degraded, were they degraded to more toxic forms? So now that was our limitation. So now what we are looking in the currently and in the future is to make sure that we look into the biotransform or metabolized products of any of such processes. Now, part 4, community engagement, interventions, and awareness. We've done quite a lot. I'll just pick one here. I will just pick 2 due to time. It's just that we have worked with Izindaba Zukulda Farmers Lab, where you have a lot of farmers, more than 500 farmers within this lab, that they come together. So we organized an EU NRF workshop, 2 workshops, one in 2020 and another one in 2021. The subsequent one was online. The 2021 was virtually, where we participated in a lot and we gave a series of talks. Then the second one that I will also talk about, maybe you may consider me here as a celebrity. In Norway in 2019, we had a workshop. And we had a campfire, and all of a sudden it came to my mind that, but why can't we as scientists also act movies? So I called all the PhD students that were there and Juliana to lead, and I started filming and said they should be saying anything. I was just talking to everybody, asking them their impressions. From there, I sent Juliana to Nigeria so that she can go and also take part and do some videos, interview women or people selling in the market. And all of a sudden, before we knew, there was a competition, a video competition in science organized by Michigan University, as well in collaboration with the Federal University of Agriculture, FUNAP Abeokuta in Nigeria. And we did a lot of screening and all those. And then we took part of the video was taken in Belgium, and then another one in, I can't remember each. So now, but the thing is, it became the best. The video won the best prize, and it has had wide views, and that was our means of looking how we can communicate to the community to bring public awareness and also for them to address food safety issues. That is one of the things that I wanted to share. And that is it about what we have been doing so far. And then these are a series, a list of various students that are, here you have Prof. Adebo, I happen to, it's our repertoire or in this evening. But I happen to be part of a supervisory team during his master's and his PhD. And there are a number of them that have worked. Some of you are here. So, but the thing is that let's not waste time here. There is a booklet, so you can have a look to see what is happening there or who are those that are listed therein. So some of these students, not actually those that actually registered in UJ, but actually they either came here for 3 months, 1 year, 6 months, or to spend or to do some of their research works here under my supervision. So that's why I've listed some of them. And one of the students that I also want to share is that there is also Dr. Veli Tipi, and he has brought in a lot of collaboration for us. You will see subsequently. He's currently a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Missouri in US, where I spent 1 month during the month of May this year. So he has played a great role. Sometimes some of the funding we have joined. And he is Prof. Ketish has been, is being considered, not that he's being considered, he is the father of green nanotechnology. Yeah, and he has done a lot, and we are considering him being a distinguished visiting professor in the university here. We have planned a lot of projects, which I'll explain more subsequently. So what are the challenges? Despite all these achievements, there have been a lot of challenges. Some are still ongoing. The first is that there is limited funding in this field, despite the fact that food safety is a huge, huge problem that affects everyone, with mycotoxin playing a major role. But funding research into mycotoxin is very limited. Even here at the University of Johannesburg, we've had limited support, even though I'm putting URC that they've been supporting, but they need to do more. Then there is also lack, as I mentioned, lack of support internally and nationally. Then there is, at continental level, mycotoxin research is actually difficult, especially in Africa. Why? Because it requires sophisticated instrumentations. Funding is a problem. And then when it comes to human resources, there are very limited number of students or researchers that are really working into mycotoxin. Most of them are really old people. Some that are either retired, approaching retirement, or are no more. A lot, I can list them. Then you also have COVID-19 as a huge problem that really limits movement into field work, to do field research. It's really, even sometimes laboratories are shut down and you have to work using instruments. So then you have socio-political climate in Africa that limits field studies too on mycotoxin. We have a case in point where there is a genocide taking place in Cameroon, where in the English-speaking part of Cameroon, there is no research that you can do there. As we are speaking, sometimes maybe they are killing people. They are killing my people, and that's where I come from. Then there is also rampant load shedding, leaving some of the state-of-art instruments, like some that we have, like white elephants. I don't know how University of Johannesburg is supposed to do what they are supposed to do. Normally, they should do something in order to make sure that we make use. Even we have backup systems like the UPS, but they may only function like 3-4 hours a day. And if the load shedding is 6 hours a day, then how do we do that? Now, what are the ongoing? Now, we are looking into the future. But some of these researches we have been doing, I still have 5 minutes, I think so. Okay, so what have we been doing or currently and looking into the future? We are making use of samples currently and data generated from 2 ongoing work. One is for a PhD work of Shola. Where is Shola? Yeah, for PhD work, where we are employing, this is not particularly yours, but we are still looking into that, where we are looking at exposomics. I think Prof. Adebo is leading with that, where we are applying both internal omics and external to measure environmental stress factors, and in evaluating techniques and relating data that is generated from that to exposure and associated health effects in both animal and humans. Now, for Shola's own way, we are developing and validating machine learning techniques to predict the effect of climate change factors on mycotoxin production in food. And a case in point here is maize. Maize has always taken advantage because that's the main substrate for mycotoxin research here in South Africa. Then the third one is we are looking at targeted chemical transformation of zearalenone, and I also mentioned about alpha-zearalenone, where it's an analog of zearalenone to predict the effect of climate change. Into value-added pharmacoactive metabolites for agromedicinal applications. We have a case here where in the EU, the use of any mycotoxin to develop or to fabricate any other thing for use in animal and human feeding is prohibited. But the case is you have in US, and North America to be specific, Canada and US, they also have New Zealand and Australia, where they are using the same zearalenone to manufacture zeranol with various trade names as growth stimulants for ruminants. And the thing is that in Africa, there is a lot of beef being imported from the US. And in the past few years, beef production increased to a value of almost about 22 million US dollars per year. So if we are able to get these growth stimulants ourselves and produce the and making use of this mycotoxin, where we'll be talking about the silver lining, we will be able to improve animal productivity and as such alleviate the problem of protein energy malnutrition that is most prevailing in Africa. Now the last one that we are making use of in collaboration with University of Missouri in the US is to make use of nanomedicine to limit exposure to mycotoxins. Here we are synthesizing and characterizing novel cyclodextrin-based nanosponges, or adjuvants, using in vitro gastrointestinal models. The silver lining, I've just explained one. So the first one is that some mycotoxins are antibiotics. We have a case in point. The first one is penicillin, which in 1928, Dr. Alexander Fleming, a Scottish physician and microbiologist, discovered it accidentally after culturing bacteria in petri dish upon his return from holidays, only to find that the bacteria was not growing, or around a region where you had a fungus growing. And that fungus was Penicillium notatum, and around that region where Penicillium notatum was growing, no bacterium was growing there. And so he did further investigation only to find that the metabolites produced by Penicillium notatum at that time was penicillin. And since then, till date, penicillin has been used in the treatment of bacterial diseases in both animal and humans. Then we've mentioned the case of zearalenone, alpha and beta zearalenone, that are used to developing zeranol with various trade names here as growth promotants for use in ruminants, both in these countries. And then you also have many countries in South America, including Japan, that they initially banned the use of these zeranol, but now they are actually using them. They've unbanned and are actually using them till date as growth promotant and for growth promotants in ruminants, both large and small ruminants. And the thing is that if we employ such knowledge here in South Africa, we find their applications improving animal productivity that will most certainly alleviate protein energy malnutrition that is really prevailing in the continent. Now, I won't really end this without really acknowledging our collaborators. We could hear a lot that has been done here within our research unit, but this couldn't have been possible without collaboration, and also both from within and outside the university. I just want to thank everybody that has played a great role in doing so, making that possible. I also want to thank my students most especially, because you have been really, both past and present, you have been inspirational. You push me, and there is a lot that I learned from you, and I hope that there is something that you learned from me. These are some of the relevant references. Now, acknowledgement, above all, the funding bodies, and I have listed them there. And one other thing that I will really emphasize there, I'm acknowledging collaboration with every party. I just want to seize this opportunity once more to thank you all for listening to me And I hope that there is something that you are going to take home along with you. Thank you so much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, viewers who are also watching virtually. VC designate, allow me to stand on existing protocol to acknowledge those who have already been acknowledged, and also acknowledge my head of department, who is somewhere in this room, Professor Maloro Serapadlamini. I've been given a very simple task this evening, yet a difficult one. Simple in the sense that I've known Prof. Njobeh for about a decade now, as his former student, as he rightly said, as, of course, my supervisor then, and now a colleague in the department, but a difficult one, because if you look at the amount of work he's done, which he tried as much as possible to summarize in that 40 minutes, which I think he exceeded, it's really a difficult one. But indeed, Prof. Njobeh, you've taken us through the importance of knowing what mycotoxins are, the terrible challenges that are associated with mycotoxin contamination in food. You've spoken about the need to investigate them, the methods you've been involved in developing. And of course, you haven't stopped there. You've talked about the need to prevent and control it, knowing fully well the impact they have. You've also touched on the project or activities you've done in trying to engage with society on this. And I think it's a good time to re-emphasize that food safety at times is swept under the carpet. I think this evening we've seen some of the challenges with doing that, because if we continue to do that, there are enormous challenges that comes with that. And if you look at the definition of food security, in actual fact, safe food is a part of the definition of food security that one cannot overemphasize. Thank you so very much, Prof. Njobeh, for doing that. And if you also look at his research, the VC designate, you will agree with me that your research activities over the years has indeed been global, has shown excellence, of course has brought stature to the University of Johannesburg. You've used innovative techniques, which is intertwined to the DNA of the University of Johannesburg, and of course has societal impact. And one will agree with me that your research is continuing to follow the strategy of the University of Johannesburg in the past, the current, and looking into the future. Ladies and gentlemen, he deserves a round of applause. There is no doubt you are a pace setter. I think I like the word Madam Dean used at a point. You are, or is it the VC designate? Said you're actually a disruptor, and you've set pace in numerous ways. I might want to even add at this point that in the 10-year existence of the Department of Biotechnology and Food Technology, you are actually given the first inaugural lecture from that department. Colleagues, another round of applause. I think the one interesting part about you is the fact of how much you encourage our colleagues, and myself included, to do better than you. And it's quite confusing to me, because when I look at what you've generated, what you've done in the past couple of years, perhaps touching only on the 47 million rands you've won in grants, I keep asking myself, at what point will I reach there? But I take solace in the fact that I think I will hide under the fact that our shoe sizes are very different. If one look at your height from a perpendicular position and mine, I think, Madam Dean, it's clear to say I would rather stay in my lane. But thank you so very much for encouraging us and doing what you have been doing over the years. I think very much so, you've spent time in the University of Johannesburg. One might even at a point call you a Madala within the system. And at some point, you were even given a long service award. Perhaps one might say, I think I was having a chat with Madam Dean earlier on, to say your blood is actually thick orange now. In UJ terms, we say that to really emphasize the UJ culture, which you continue to do, and please do not stop doing it. Of course, I think I really need to also thank Ma Beka and Pa Beka for blessing us with this wonderful man. I also met them when they were here, and a part of me, while I was coming here this evening, kept asking myself, why did I not ask them how many times you were shambogged? I think you actually alluded to that when you started your presentation by saying you might be characterized as being stubborn. But in any case, thank you very much, Ma Beka and Pa Beka, for shambogging him when he needed to be shambogged, because we appreciate the version of Patrick that we are enjoying today. And of course, to your students, you've actually acknowledged them earlier on, myself included. Professors can profess, yes, but very much so we need individuals, students, postdocs, to carry out those research activities. And indeed, we thank each and every one of them for contributing to your development. But also, perhaps on their behalf, myself included, I also want to thank you for doing much more. You are not only a professor who professes, you are a compassionate one. I think each and every student of yours will actually allude to that fact. If you are not a brother to some, you are a father to some. If you are not a father to some, you are an uncle to some. If you are not an uncle to some, you are a friend to so many of us. And indeed, if one looks at the document that was printed out, I think if I'm not mistaken, about only 2 of your students are those who you don't know their whereabouts. That also speaks to the kind of relationship you've maintained with your students. And I think it's also a note for the current ones and future ones who will listen to this in the nearest future to say, please maintain a good relationship with Prof. Njobeh. And of course, to your collaborators, the funders, thank you so very much for that which you've done. We cannot thank them enough. Thank you so very much for the funding you've provided, including the University of Johannesburg, and the support. Of course, you've alluded to the fact that you need more. We hope you get more. Indeed, I think we cannot thank enough the families, the friends, the support structure for Prof. Njobeh. Samuel, I think it tells me very much how well you want to become the next Nema. I wish you the best in becoming better than Nema. And one person that I will definitely also say thank you to is, I think for those who are families and friends who know who I'm referring to when I say D, when Prof. Njobeh says D or Vicky, I think we know who we're referring to. Thank you so very much, Mrs. D. Njobeh, for the love, for the support, for the prayers. I think when they use that word, a better half, when you are referring to spout, you indeed have a better half. I've enjoyed his largesse, having her largesse so much so. You might not remember this story that I will tell you now. At the point during my studies, I deliberately send you documents on a weekend. And the reason is because you will tell me to come to your house on a Saturday. And the first thing that will be offered to me is food. And the one person who does that is D. So thank you so very much, Miss D. And it doesn't even stop there. When I'm going, she even insists. There you go. There is always a takeaway to take along. Thank you so very much, myself. And this is not only unique to me. This transcends to each and every student of yours. Thank you so very much for that which you do. Thank you for supporting this man. We really appreciate you. And to Prof. Njobeh, thank you so very much for this evening. The Globe, I think, appreciates you. The department thanks you for your wonderful service. The University of Johannesburg also appreciates what you've done. I think the sub-discipline of mycotoxin acknowledges the so much effort and impact you have into this discipline. On that note, colleagues, please, with a round of applause, help me congratulate this well-deserving Professor Patrick Njobeh.
Congratulations, Professor, full Professor Njobeh. It's a pity, I don't know if there are people from Zoo here. I didn't hear the things I hear from villages. I don't know. Why are you so, I think your ancestors and your family and everybody today are very happy. Tomorrow morning, we have a management executive committee, or a committee of 8 that lead the university under the VC. And the first thing I will say at 7:30 in the morning will be to talk about this lecture. And this I will be talking about for a very long time. And to the people who didn't know what a professorial inauguration is, today they know that it is something that they didn't know you know. And that you know so much. It is mind-boggling what you've said, such that I'm going to mind what I eat from now onwards. I don't want to speak ill of the things that were not right for people in case people do not, spread their bread and so on and so forth. But I will be very, very careful this time. But thank you so much. And I think, Prof. Mutiti, we have to bridge the gap between faculty and management. It is not right that we can only wake up to these things today. There is so much that we need to know, and thank you for contributing. I read your profile, and I know you joined us way, way, way back. And I think that this lecture is very long overdue. You also helped me understand retrospectively in my other life why the EU was so snotty over our export of citrus that had black dots. And at the time of being diplomats, and we knew nothing about food security, like, it's just black dots, what's wrong with you? Just open the thing and eat the orange, But there would be stacks and stacks of oranges stuck at sea because there was need to certify that they actually were safe for human consumption. And so you've woken us up to what we eat. We've woken us up to everything around what comes into our body. And I heard you when you talk about digestible, when you talk about inhalation, when you talk about things that come through the skin. Can you see how I have learned tonight? I can actually lecture back. And thank you so much. I will convey to the Vice-Chancellor, and I think he owes you lunch, and I will make sure that such happens. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to invite you. When you come out, you go to your left, and there will be some food security and drinks. It follows that after this, then you have to, and I can assure you it is safe for human consumption. Have a pleasant evening and a very good ride back home. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The University of Johannesburg, the future reimagined.